The Las Vegas Strip Disappearance. Ex-casino employee's shocking confession: I never thought I'd see her face again. Not after that summer night in 2011, when 8-year-old Emma Price vanished from the Bellagio Casino floor, and every news channel in Nevada showed me being dragged out in handcuffs. I can still hear the slot machines chiming through the chaos, smell the cigarette smoke mixing with her mother's perfume, feel the cold marble under my knees as security pinned me down, see the flashing lights of police cars reflecting off the fountain outside. They said I was the last employee to interact with her. They said I lured her away from her family. I lost my job, my apartment, my ability to look at myself in the mirror. For 13 years, I worked night shifts at gas stations where nobody knew my name. But 3 days ago, I was covering a friend's security shift at the Luxor when a woman walked past camera 7, touching a small heart-shaped locket around her neck. The same silver locket Emma's grandmother had given her the morning she disappeared. When she glanced up at the camera, I realized someone had been hiding the truth all along. My name is Marcus Chen, and this is the story of how one missing child case destroyed my life, haunted an entire city, and revealed a truth so dark that even now I wake up at 3 in the morning wondering if I could have prevented it all. This is a story about missing children, about unsolved cases that become cold cases, about shocking revelations that come years later when everyone has stopped looking. This is the haunting story of Emma Price. June 14, 2011. Las Vegas Strip. 9:30 p.m. The temperature outside was still 98 degrees. The kind of desert heat that makes tourists forget they're in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by nothing but sand and desperation. The Bellagio Casino floor was packed with over 3,000 people. Tourists snapping photos of the hand-blown glass ceiling, gamblers feeding $20 bills into slot machines, families weaving through the maze of gaming tables, following the sound of the fountains outside. I was 26 years old, working as a casino floor supervisor, and I loved my job. I had been with the Bellagio for 4 years, started as a security guard, worked my way up to floor supervisor. My job was simple: help lost guests find their way, assist elderly gamblers who couldn't figure out the new digital slot machines, keep an eye out for cheaters, drunks, and anyone who looked out of place. Most importantly, help lost children find their parents. In 4 years, I had reunited probably 200 kids with their families. 200 crying children who wandered away from mum and dad, got scared, and needed a friendly face to help them. I was good at it. I was patient. I smiled. I knelt down to their level so I wouldn't seem intimidating. Parents thanked me. My supervisors praised me. I thought I was making a difference. That night, I was scheduled to work until 2 a.m., covering the main floor near the famous fountains, where tourists gathered every 15 minutes to watch water dance to music. It was a popular spot for families because kids loved the show, which meant it was a popular spot for lost kids who wandered away while parents were distracted by the spectacle. I had my radio, my ID badge, and 4 years of experience helping people. I thought I was prepared for anything.
Emma Price was 8 years old, 4 feet 2 inches tall, 63 pounds. Blonde hair in 2 braids tied with pink ribbons her mother had bought that morning at a gift shop. Gap between her front teeth that made her smile unforgettable, the kind of smile that lit up a room. She wore a white sundress with yellow flowers, white sandals that lit up when she walked, and a small white cardigan because the casino air conditioning was always too cold for desert kids. Around her neck was a silver heart-shaped locket, a family heirloom from her grandmother who had passed away 3 months earlier from pancreatic cancer. Inside the locket was a tiny photo of Emma and her grandmother at Disneyland, both smiling, both wearing Minnie Mouse ears, both unaware that in 90 days one would be dead and the other would vanish. Emma's family was staying at the Bellagio for a wedding. Her mother, Jennifer Price, 34 years old, elementary school teacher from Sacramento, California, 5'6", brown hair, warm smile. The kind of mom who volunteered for every school field trip and baked cookies for every bake sale. Her father, David Price, 37 years old, construction manager, 6'1", quiet, the kind of dad who showed love through actions rather than words. Her older brother, Tyler, 12 years old, tall for his age, glued to his phone the entire trip like every 12-year-old in 2011. They had checked in that morning at 11 a.m., spent the afternoon by the pool, attended the wedding ceremony at 6 p.m. in the Bellagio Chapel, and decided to walk through the casino at 9 p.m. to see the famous fountain show before putting the kids to bed. It was supposed to be a fun family moment, a memory they would laugh about years later. Look at the photos from that Vegas trip. Remember when Tyler was obsessed with his phone? Remember when Emma loved those light-up sandals? Remember when we stayed up past bedtime to watch the fountains? Instead, it became the last normal moment of their lives. At 9:15 p.m., Jennifer Price approached me near the poker room. I remember her clearly because she was one of those frazzled moms, juggling a purse, a phone, and trying to keep track of 2 kids in a crowded casino. She asked me where the restrooms were. I pointed her toward the corridor near the poker room, about 50 feet away, told her to look for the gold signs with the bathroom symbols. Emma was holding her mother's hand. Tyler was 10 feet behind them, texting someone, not paying attention to anything except his screen. David was at the bar getting drinks, 2 vodka cranberries for the adults, 2 Shirley Temples for the kids. It was a normal family moment in a city built on normal family moments. Jennifer thanked me and headed toward the bathroom. Emma followed her mother, her light-up sandals blinking with each step. I watched them for a moment, the way I always watched families with kids, making sure they got where they were going safely. Then I turned to help an elderly couple who looked confused about where the elevators were. That interaction, helping that elderly couple, took maybe 90 seconds. When I looked back toward the bathroom corridor, Jennifer and Emma were gone, disappeared into the crowd. I thought nothing of it. My job was done. I helped the elderly couple find the elevators, then returned to my post near the fountains. At 9:23 p.m., Jennifer Price emerged from the bathroom alone. I noticed her because she looked around with that confused expression parents get when they KU in, immediately spot their kids. Tyler was still in the same spot, still on his phone. David was walking back from the bar with 4 drinks carefully balanced, but Emma was not there. I assumed she was still in the bathroom with her mother, but Jennifer's confusion turned to concern in seconds. She called Emma's name. No answer. She walked back into the bathroom. She came out 30 seconds later, her face pâle. Emma was not in the bathroom. The scream Jennifer Price let out at 9:24 p.m. cut through the casino noise like a knife through silk. It was primal, terrified, the kind of scream that makes everyone stop what they're doing and turn to look. Slot machines kept chiming. Cards kept being dealt. But everyone in a 50-foot radius froze. A mother had lost her child. Within 30 seconds, I was at Jennifer's side. Within 60 seconds, I had radioed security. Within 90 seconds, every security guard on the floor was mobilized. Within 3 minutes, every exit in the Bellagio was locked down. No one in, no one out. Within 5 minutes, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department had units on scene. Within 10 minutes, Emma Price's face was on every casino security screen in Nevada. Within 15 minutes, FBI was notified because child abduction cases crossed state lines within hours. I was the last casino employee to see her. Security footage showed me talking to Jennifer and Emma at 9:15 p.m. In the video, I'm pointing toward the bathroom. Emma is holding her mother's hand. Jennifer is nodding, then they walk away, and I turn to help the elderly couple. The footage is grainy, black and white, shot from above, the kind of footage that shows actions but not intentions. It shows me interacting with a child who would vanish 8 minutes later. It doesn't show what I was actually doing, helping a mother find a bathroom. It doesn't show my innocence. It shows reasonable doubt. The investigation moved fast, too fast. Detective Sarah Rodriguez, a 20-year veteran with the Missing Children Division, arrived at 9:45 p.m. She was 52 years old, gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, sharp eyes that had seen too many missing children cases, and a reputation for solving them fast. Her clearance rate was 87%, one of the highest in Nevada. She didn't solve cases by being patient. She solved them by trusting her gut and moving fast. She interviewed me at 9:50 p.m., right there on the casino floor, while security guards stood in a circle around us like I was already a suspect. I told her everything. Jennifer asked me where the bathroom was. I pointed her toward the corridor. Emma was with her mother. I watched them walk away. I turned to help an elderly couple. When I looked back, they were gone into the crowd. I never touched Emma. I never led her anywhere. I never spoke directly to her. I was doing my job, helping a mother find a bathroom. But Detective Rodriguez had seen too many cases where the helpful employee, the friendly neighbor, the trusted family friend turned out to be the monster. She had learned the hard way that predators hide in plain sight, that they gain trust through helpfulness, that they create opportunities through kindness. She had seen janitors who offered to help find lost children and led them to storage rooms. She had seen security guards who offered to escort children to their parents and took them out back exits. She had learned to trust her instincts, and her instincts told her something was wrong with my story. At 10:15 p.m., I was escorted to a back office for further questioning. Detective Rodriguez sat across from me in a windowless room that smelled like stale coffee and fear. She asked me the same questions over and over. Where exactly were you standing? What exactly did you say to Jennifer Price? Did you touch Emma? Did you speak to Emma? How long did you watch them? Why did you turn away? Why didn't you keep watching? What happened in those 8 minutes between 9:15 and 9:23? I answered the same way every time. I helped her mother. I did my job. I turned away to help other guests. I never touched Emma. I never spoke to Emma. I don't know what happened, but my answers weren't enough. At 11 p.m., my apartment was being searched by 6 police officers with a warrant. At 11:30 p.m., my phone, computer, laptop, tablet, and personal belongings were seized as evidence. Forensic teams were searching for child pornography, for evidence of planning, for anything that would prove I was involved in Emma's disappearance. They found nothing because there was nothing to find. I had never hurt a child. I had never thought about hurting a child. I was innocent. At midnight, I was arrested for suspicion of child abduction. Detective Rodriguez read me my rights in that windowless room while I sat there in shock, unable to process what was happening. She told me she knew I took Emma. She told me she knew I had planned this. She told me if I confessed now and told her where Emma was, things would go easier for me. I told her I didn't take Emma. I told her I didn't know where Emma was. I told her she was making a mistake. She didn't believe me. The media descended like vultures at dawn. By 6 a.m. on June 15th, my face was on every news channel. Casino employee arrested in Bellagio, child disappearance. Floor supervisor questioned in vanished girl case. Security guard detained as missing child search intensifies. They used my work photo, the one where I'm smiling in my casino uniform, looking friendly and approachable. That photo became synonymous with evil. Parents across America looked at that photo and thought, that's what a predator looks like. Normal, helpful, trusted. That's how they get close to children. My bail was set at $500,000. My family didn't have $500,000. My parents were immigrants who owned a small restaurant in Chinatown. They had maybe $20,000 in savings. $500,000 might as well have been $5 million. I sat in county jail while the news coverage while Emma's face appeared on every billboard from Los Angeles to Phoenix, while my family received death threats spray painted on their restaurant windows, while strangers sent letters to the jail promising to kill me if I ever got out, while my girlfriend of 3 years broke up with me via a letter slipped under my cell door saying she couldn't be with someone accused of hurting a child. While my entire life evaporated like water on hot Las Vegas asphalt, in county jail I learned what it meant to be accused of crimes against children. Other inmates knew why I was there. The guards made sure everyone knew. Accused child abductors are the lowest of the low in prison hierarchy. Lower than murderers. Lower than rapists. Lower than anyone. On my second night, 3 inmates cornered me in the shower. They beat me until I couldn't stand. They told me they had kids. They told me if I ever got out, they'd find me and finish the job. Guards came, eventually, but not before I had 2 broken ribs, a black eye, and the understanding that even in jail, I wasn't safe. On day 7, June 21st, the district attorney held a press conference. There was insufficient evidence to charge me. The video footage showed I had minimal interaction with Emma. No witnesses saw me leave with Emma. Forensic analysis of my apartment, phone, and computer showed no evidence of child pornography, no evidence of planning, no evidence of involvement. I was being released pending further investigation. The DA emphasized that I was still a person of interest, that the investigation was ongoing, that they would continue to pursue all leads. But for now, I was free. Free. What a strange word. I walked out of county jail on June 21st with 2 broken ribs, a black eye, no job, no girlfriend, and a name that would forever be associated with Emma Price. The media was waiting outside. Cameras, microphones, reporters shouting questions. Did you take her? Where is she? Why should we believe you're innocent? I said nothing. I walked to my car, which had been vandalized with spray paint. Child killer. Monster. Die. I drove home to my apartment, which had been searched and left in shambles. I closed the door, locked it, and cried for the first time since I was arrested. The Bellagio fired me on June 22nd. Not because I was guilty, because I was toxic. Because every parent who walked through those doors would see me and think of Emma Price. Because the casino's reputation mattered more than one employee's destroyed life. The termination letter was polite. They thanked me for my 4 years of service. They wished me well. They explained that given the circumstances, my continued employment was no longer tenable. I understood it. I even agreed with it. But it didn't make it hurt any less. I was 26 years old, unemployed, blacklisted from the casino industry, and suspected of one of the most notorious missing children cases in Nevada history. The FBI took over the investigation by week 2. This was no longer just a Las Vegas case. This was a potential child abduction that could have crossed state lines, which meant federal jurisdiction. Special Agent Michael Torres, a 25-year veteran of the FBI's Crimes Against Children Unit, set up a command center at the Las Vegas field office. He had worked on hundreds of missing children cases. He knew the statistics. 74% of abducted children who are murdered are killed within 3 hours of abduction. If Emma was taken by a stranger, she was likely already dead by the time the FBI got involved. But Agent Torres had also worked the Elizabeth Smart case, the J.C. Jugard case, cases where children were found alive years later. He refused to assume Emma was dead. The FBI interviewed over 2,000 people in the first month, every casino employee who worked that night, every guest who stayed at the Bellagio, every person captured on security footage in the hours before and after Emma disappeared. They searched every hotel room, every packing garage, every storage area, every loading dock. They brought in cadaver dogs to search the grounds. They drained the fountains, the decorative ponds, any body of water where a small body could be hidden. They searched dumpsters within a 10-mile radius. They found nothing. The Price family fell apart in real time on national television. Jennifer Price held daily press conferences, begging for information, begging for Emma's safe return, begging whoever took her daughter to please bring her home. She aged 10 years in 10 days. Her hair went from brown to gray. Her face developed lines that weren't there before. She stopped sleeping, stopped eating, became a ghost of herself. David Price stood beside her at the press conferences, silent, his jaw clenched, his fists clenched, a man barely holding himself together through sheer willpower. Tyler Price stopped going to school. He stopped eating. He blamed himself for being on his phone, for not watching his sister, for not protecting her. The wedding they had come to Vegas for was never spoken of again. The bride and groom, Jennifer's cousin, and her new husband postponed their honeymoon indefinitely. They felt guilty celebrating love and happiness while Emma was missing. The entire extended family descended on Las Vegas to help search, to distribute flyers, to organize volunteer groups that combed the desert looking for any sign of Emma. Week 3, June 30th, the case went national. America's Most Wanted featured Emma's case. John Walsh, who had lost his own son to abduction and murder, interviewed Jennifer and David on camera. Jennifer broke down crying, unable to finish sentences. David sat stone-faced, his pain too deep for tears. The episode generated thousands of tips. FBI agents worked 18-hour days following up on every single lead. None of them went anywhere. Week 4, July 7th, the first false confession came in. A mentally ill man in Arizona called police claiming he had taken Emma. He said God told him to save her from sin. Polícia Federal Norte-Americana agents drove to Arizona, interviewed him for 6 hours, realized he had never been to Las Vegas, had no connection to the case, and was suffering from schizophrenia. He was hospitalized. The false confession made news. It gave the Price family hope for 24 hours, then crushed them when it turned out to be nothing. By month to August 14th, the media coverage had shifted from active search to somber reflection. 2 months since Emma Price vanished from the Bellagio, still no leads, still no answers. The Price family is begging for information. If you know anything, please call the FBI tip line. I watched the coverage from my new apartment in a different part of Las Vegas, a smaller place, cheaper, in a neighborhood where nobody recognized me. I had grown a beard. I wore baseball caps everywhere. I avoided eye contact with people. I had become invisible. I couldn't find work. Every job application asked about criminal history. I hadn't been convicted of anything, so I could honestly check no, but employers Googled names. When they Googled Marcus Chun, the first 1,000 results were about Emma Price. Suspected casino employee, person of interest, last person to see her. No one wanted to hire someone associated with a missing child case. I lived on savings for 3 months, then applied for unemployment. The money barely covered rent. Month 3, September 14th, Jennifer and David Price announced their separation on the news. They released a statement saying the grief had become too much, that they needed space, that they still loved each other but could unbe together while carrying the weight of Emma's disappearance. Therapists say that losing a child destroys 80% of marriages. The Price marriage became another casualty. Tyler Price moved with his mother back to Sacramento. David stayed in Las Vegas, unable to leave the city where his daughter vanished, convinced that leaving would mean giving up hope. By month 6, December 14th, I had moved out of Las Vegas. I couldn't stay in a city where every street corner reminded me of Emma, where every casino I passed made me think of that night, where every blonde girl I saw in a crowd made my heart stop thinking maybe, just maybe. I moved to Reno, 2 hours north, a smaller city, fewer casinos, fewer tourists, fewer memories. I found work at a 24-hour gas station, night shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The owner didn't Google my name, or if he did, he didn't care. He needed someone to work nights. I needed a job. We didn't ask each other questions. Working night shifts at a gas station is lonely work. Between midnight and 4 a.m., maybe 10 customers come in. Drunks buying cigarettes, truckers buying coffee, insomniacs buying junk food. I rang them up, restocked shelves, cleaned, and tried not to think about Emma Price. But she was always there, in the back of my mind, a ghost I couldn't shake. Every blonde girl who came in with her parents made me think of her. Every time I saw a white sundress, I thought of her. Every time someone mentioned Las Vegas, I thought of her. Year 1 anniversary, June 14th, 2012. Every news channel did anniversary coverage. 1 year since Emma Price vanished. Still no leads. Families still searching. If you have any information, please contact the FBI. Jennifer Price had started a foundation, the Emma Price Foundation for Missing Children. She had become an advocate, channeling her grief into activism, pushing for better Amber Alert systems, better casino security protocols, better training for employees on how to prevent child abductions. David Price gave no interviews. He had gone silent, disappeared into his grief. I watched the coverage alone in my apartment in Reno. The news showed my photo again. Marcus Chun, the casino employee who was questioned and released. Still a person of interest. I had hoped that after a year, people would forget. I was wrong. My name would be tied to Emma Price forever. Year 2, June 14th, 2013. Emma would have been 10 years old. The FBI released an age progression photo showing what Emma might look like at 10. Issue blonde, taller, face less childlike, but still that same smile, that same gap between her teeth. The Price family held a vigil at the Bellagio. Hundreds of people attended. Strangers who had followed the case, families who had lost children, advocates for missing persons. Jennifer Price spoke about never giving up hope, about believing Emma was still alive somewhere. David Price did not attend. He had moved to Arizona, stopped giving interviews, stopped participating in anniversary events. Everyone grieves differently. David's grief was solitary. I wanted to attend the vigil. I wanted to tell Jennifer Price that I thought about Emma every day, that I was sorry, that I wished I could have prevented what happened. But I knew my presence would cause a scene. I would be recognized. People would be angry. They would think I had the audacity to show up at a vigil for a girl I was suspected of abducting. So I stayed home in Reno, watched the coverage on TV, and cried alone. Year 3, June 14th, 2014. The FBI officially designated Emma's case as a cold case. This didn't mean they were giving up, just that there were no active leads to pursue. The case would remain open indefinitely, but resources would be redirected to cases with active leads. Detective Rodriguez, who had led the initial investigation, attended the press conference where the FBI made the announcement. She looked older, tired, defeated. She said Emma Price was her unfinished business, that she thought about her every day, that she would never stop believing Emma was out there somewhere. Year 4, June 14th, 2015. Tyler Price, now 16 years old, gave his first interview. He talked about the guilt he carried for being on his phone, for not watching Emma, for not protecting his little sister. He talked about dropping out of high school, about struggling with depression and anxiety, about turning to drugs to numb the pain. His mother, Jennifer, sat beside him, holding his hand, both of them crying. It was heartbreaking to watch. Emma's disappearance had destroyed not just her parents' marriage, but her brother's childhood. He was 12 when she vanished. He should have been worried about homework and friends and sports. Instead, he spent his teenage years drowning in guilt and addiction. I was still working at the gas station in Reno, still living alone, still invisible. I had accepted that this was my life now. I would never escape the shadow of Emma Price. I would never have a normal relationship, a normal job, a normal life. I was 29 years old, and my life was over. Year 5, June 14th, 2016. Something changed. A witness came forward, a tourist named Karen Mitchell, who had been at the Bellagio on June 14, 2011. She had been too scared to come forward initially, afraid of getting involved, afraid of the media circus, afraid her vacation photos would be subpoenaed and her privacy violated. But 5 years of guilt had eaten at her. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't stop thinking about Emma Price. She finally called the FBI tip line. Karen Mitchell told investigators that at approximately 9:20 p.m. on June 14, 2011, she saw a man in a maintenance uniform leading a little blonde girl toward the service elevators near the poker room. The girl was crying. The man was holding her hand tightly, pulling her along. Karen assumed it was a father with his misbehaving daughter. A family moment. Nothing suspicious. Nothing. She took a photo of the casino floor at 9:21 p.m., a selfie with the Bellagio ceiling in the background. When investigators enhanced the photo, they could see in the background, blurry but visible, a man in a maintenance uniform with a small blonde girl. The FBI investigation they pulled records of every maintenance worker who had been on duty that night. There were 37 maintenance workers on shift. FBI agents re-interviewed all of them, conducted polygraph tests, searched their homes, interviewed their families, analyzed their backgrounds. No one matched the description. No one had a history of violence. No one had a connection to Emma. The lead went nowhere, but it did one crucial thing. It shifted suspicion away from me. The media coverage mentioned my name again, but this time with a different tone. New witness describes man in maintenance uniform. Casino supervisor Marcus Chun was not wearing a maintenance uniform. Former suspect may have been wrongly accused. New lead in Emma Price case shifts focus away from questioned employee. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't justice. But it was something. It was the first time in 5 years that my name appeared in the news without the words suspected or person of interest attached to it. Detective Rodriguez called me on June 20th, 2016. It was the first time we had spoken since that terrible night 5 years ago. She apologized. She said her instincts had been wrong, that she had been so focused on solving the case quickly that childhood. He was 12 when she vanished. He should have been worried about homework and friends and sports. Instead, he spent his teenage years drowning in guilt and addiction. I was still working at the gas station in Reno, still living alone, still invisible. I had accepted that this was my life now. I would never escape the shadow of Emma Price. I would never have a normal relationship, a normal job, a normal life. I was 29 years old, and my life was over. Year 5, June 14th, 2016. Something changed. A witness came forward. A tourist named Karen Mitchell, who had been at the Bellagio on June 14th, 2011. She had been too scared to come forward initially, afraid of getting involved, afraid of the media circus, afraid her vacation photos would be subpoenaed and her privacy violated. But 5 years of guilt had eaten at her. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't stop thinking about Emma Price. She finally called the FBI tip line. Karen Mitchell told investigators that at approximately 9:20 p.m. on June 14, 2011, she saw a man in a maintenance uniform leading a little blonde girl toward the service elevators near the poker room. The girl was crying. The man was holding her hand tightly, pulling her along. Karen assumed it was a father with his misbehaving daughter. A family moment. Nothing suspicious. Nothing. She took a photo of the casino floor at 9:21 p.m., a selfie with the Bellagio ceiling in the background. When investigators enhanced the photo, they could see in the background, blurry but visible, a man in a maintenance uniform with a small blonde girl. The FBI investigation they pulled records of every maintenance worker who had been on duty that night. There were 37 maintenance workers on shift. FBI agents re-interviewed all of them, conducted polygraph tests, searched their homes, interviewed their families, analyzed their backgrounds. No one matched the description. No one had a history of violence. No one had a connection to Emma. The lead went nowhere, but it did one crucial thing. It shifted suspicion away from me. The media coverage mentioned my name again, but this time with a different tone. New witness describes man in maintenance uniform. Casino supervisor Marcus Chun was not wearing a maintenance uniform. Former suspect may have been wrongly accused. New lead in Emma Price case shifts focus away from questioned employee. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't justice. But it was something. It was the first time in 5 years that my name appeared in the news without the words suspected or person of interest attached to it. Detective Rodriguez called me on June 20th, 2016. It was the first time we had spoken since that terrible night 5 years ago. She apologized. She said her instincts had been wrong, that she had been so focused on solving the case quickly that she had jumped to conclusions that she had destroyed an innocent man's life in her desperation to find Emma. She said she was sorry, and she meant it. I told her I forgave her. I'm not sure I meant it. Part of me was still angry, still bitter, still resentful that she had ruined my life based on a hunch, but another part of me understood. She was trying to save a missing child. She thought she was doing the right thing. We were both victims of the same tragedy, just in different ways. I told her I forgave her because holding on to anger was exhausting, and I was tired of being angry. Year 6, June 14th, 2017. The case was cold again. The maintenance uniform lead had gone nowhere. Jennifer Price continued her advocacy work, now traveling the country, speaking at conferences about missing children, pushing for policy changes, helping other families navigate the nightmare of having a missing child. David Price had remarried, started a new life in Arizona, had a new baby. He told a reporter that he would never stop loving Emma, but he had to find a way to keep living. Tyler Price was in rehab, his third attempt at getting clean. I was still in Reno. Still working at the gas station, still invisible, but something had shifted in me after Detective Rodriguez's apology. I realized I had spent 6 years hiding, 6 years being ashamed of something I didn't do, 6 years letting other people's suspicions define me. I decided to stop hiding. I shaved my beard. I stopped wearing baseball caps. I started applying for better jobs. Most places still rejected me when they Googled my name, but some didn't. Some saw the new articles about the maintenance uniform witness and realized I had been wrongly accused. Year 7, June 14th, 2018. I got a job as a counselor at a nonprofit in Reno that helped wrongly accused individuals navigate the legal system and rebuild their lives. The director, a woman named Patricia Hughes, had been wrongly convicted of theft and spent 3 years in prison before being exonerated. She understood what it meant to carry the weight of false accusations. She hired me not despite my connection to the M.A. Price case, but because of it. She said I had perspective that would help others. Working at the nonprofit changed my life. I met people who had lost years to wrongful convictions, who had been destroyed by false accusations, who had rebuilt their lives from nothing. I met a man who spent 22 years in prison for a murder he did on commit before DNA evidence exonerated him. I met a woman who was accused of child abuse by a vindictive ex-husband and lost custody of her children for 5 years before the truth came out. I met people whose pain was worse than mine, and it gave me perspective. I wasn't the only person destroyed by a broken system. I wasn't alone. Year 8, June 14th, 2019. Emma would have been 16 years old. The FBI released a new age progression photo. She looked like a teenager now, no longer a little girl. Still blonde, still that same smile, but older, more mature. Jennifer Price held another vigil at the Bellagio. The crowd was smaller than in previous years. The media coverage was minimal. Missing children cases fade from public consciousness over time. New tragedies replace old ones. Emma Price was becoming a forgotten case, but Detective Rodriguez never forgot. She had retired from LVMPD in 2017, but she kept Emma's case file. She reviewed it every few months, looking for something she might have missed. Some connection that wasn't obvious 8 years ago. She attended every vigil. She called Jennifer Price on Emma's birthday every year. She had made a promise to a missing girl 8 years ago, and she intended to keep it. In September of 2019, something happened that would change everything. A woman named Patricia Henley was arrested in Oregon for welfare fraud. Nothing to do with Emma Price. Nothing to do with Las Vegas. just a routine fraud investigation. But during the background check, investigators discovered something strange. Patricia Henley had a daughter named Amy who was 16 years old, but Amy Henley had no birth certificate, no hospital records, no school records before age 9, no medical history before age 9. It was as if Amy Henley had appeared out of nowhere in 2012. Oregon investigators ran Amy Henley's fingerprints through the system. Nothing. They ran her DNA through criminal databases. Nothing. They were about to close the case when one investigator had a thought. What if Amy Henley wasn't Amy Henley? What if she was someone else? Someone missing. He ran her DNA through the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, and on September 23, 2019, 8 years, 3 months, and 9 days after Emma Price disappeared from the Bellagio Casino floor, the impossible happened. Amy Henley was Emma Price. The FBI agent who got the notification called Detective Rodriguez first. She was sitting at her kitchen table having coffee when her phone rang. The agent told her to sit down. He told her they had found Emma Price. She was alive. Rodriguez dropped her phone. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what she was hearing. Emma Price, the case that had haunted her for 8 years, her biggest failure, her unfinished business. Emma Price was alive. The media explosion was instantaneous and overwhelming. Breaking news alerts on every phone in America. Missing girl found alive after 8 years. Emma Price discovered in Oregon. Child abduction. Victim rescued. The story dominated every news channel, every website, every social media platform for weeks. It was the feel-good story of the decade. A missing child found alive. A family reunited, hope restored. I was at work when I saw the news on TV in the break room. Someone had turned on CNN. The breaking news banner scrolled across the bottom. Emma Price found alive in Oregon. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what I was seeing. 8 years. 8 years of wondering if she was dead. 8 years of carrying guilt for something I didn't do. 8 years of nightmares. And she was alive. I broke down crying in the break room. My coworkers gathered around me, not understanding why I was crying until I managed to choke out the words. That's her. That's Emma Price. That's the girl from my case. The next few days were a blur of news coverage, interviews, press conferences. The FBI held a press conference explaining how they found Emma, how she had been living under the assumed name Amy Henley in Oregon for 8 years. Jennifer Price held a press conference with Emma beside her, both of them crying, both of them holding each other like they would never let go. Emma looked different. 16 years old now. Taller. Her blonde hair had been dyed brown for years but was growing back to its natural color. Her gap-toothed smile had been fixed with braces, but her eyes were the same. Those same eyes from the Bellagio security footage 8 years ago. But the story wasn't over. It was just beginning. Because when the FBI arrested Patricia Henley and started investigating how she had taken Emma, the truth that emerged was darker than anyone had imagined. Patricia Henley wasn't a random stranger. She wasn't a predator who had stalked the Bellagio looking for a victim. Patricia Henley was Jennifer Price's younger sister, Emma's aunt. The revelation sent shockwaves through the media. Missing girl abducted by aunt. Family member behind disappearance. Sister betrayed sister in shocking abduction case. It was the kind of twist that true crime documentaries are built on. The person who had comforted the family after Emma disappeared, who had organized search parties, who had distributed flyers, who had held Jennifer's hand through the darkest days of her life, was the person who had taken Emma. The FBI investigation revealed Patricia Henley's motive. She couldn't have children. She had tried for years, undergone multiple rounds of IVF, suffered 6 missing. Her marriage had fallen apart because of the stress of infertility. Her ex-husband had left her for another woman who got pregnant immediately. Patricia had spiraled into depression, then into something darker. Psychiatric evaluations conducted after her arrest revealed she suffered from a delusional disorder, a break with reality, where she convinced herself that Emma was meant to be her daughter, that God wanted her to have Emma, that Jennifer didn't deserve Emma. Patricia had been at the Bellagio for the wedding. She had access to the family's room. She knew their schedule. She knew Jennifer would need to use the bathroom at some point during the evening. She had borrowed a maintenance uniform from a friend who worked at a different casino, altered it to look like Bellagio staff. She had waited, watched, planned. When Jennifer and Emma went toward the bathroom at 9:15 p.m., Patricia followed. She waited until Jennifer went into a stall, then told Emma that her mother had sent her to take Emma to see the fountains, that it was a surprise. Emma trusted her aunt. Why wouldn't she? She took Patricia's hand and followed her. They walked past Cameras 7 toward the service elevators. Karen Mitchell, the tourist who came forward 5 years later, saw them but assumed it was a father and misbehaving daughter. By the time Jennifer came out of the bathroom stall and realized Emma was gone, Patricia and Emma were already in Patricia's car, driving north toward Oregon. Patricia had planned everything. A new identity for Emma, homeschooling so there would be no school records, a fake backstory about being a single mother whose husband had died. She moved to a small town in rural Oregon where nobody asked too many questions. She dyed Emma's blonde hair brown. She told Emma that her real mother didn't want her anymore, that Jennifer had given her away because she loved Tyler more. She told Emma that if she ever tried to contact her family, they would send her away to an orphanage. She manipulated a traumatized 8-year-old child into believing her entire life had been a lie. For 8 years, Emma lived as Amy Henley. She believed her aunt's lies. She believed her mother had abandoned her. She went to church, did homeschool lessons, helped Patricia with household chores, lived a quiet life in a small Oregon town. She didn't remember much about Las Vegas. The trauma had fragmented her memories. She remembered the light-up sandals, the locket, her grandmother, but the details were fuzzy, dreamlike, as if they had happened to someone else. It was Zuna until Patricia was arrested for welfare fraud in September 2019 that Emma's world collapsed. Police came to the house. They took Patricia away. They asked Emma questions. Who was she? Where was she born? Where were her parents? Emma gave the answers Patricia had taught her, but the investigators didn't believe her. They ran her fingerprints, her DNA, and they discovered the truth. Amy Henley didn't exist. She was Emma Price, and her real mother had been searching for her for 8 years. The reunion between Jennifer and Emma happened on September 25, 2019, at a safe house in Portland. FBI agents had spent 2 days preparing Emma, explaining that her mother had never abandoned her, that Patricia had kidnapped her, that Jennifer had spent 8 years searching for her, never giving up hope. Emma was terrified, confused, angry. She had believed Patricia's lies for 8 years. Learning the truth felt like her entire reality was crumbling. When Jennifer walked into that room and saw her daughter, 16 years old, alive, real, she collapsed, just fell to her knees, and sobbed. Emma stood frozen, staring at this woman who claimed to be her mother, trying to reconcile the lies she had been told with the truth she was now learning. Jennifer approached slowly, carefully, as if approaching a frightened animal. She showed Emma photos, family photos from before the abduction. Emma, as a baby. Emma's first day of school. Emma and her grandmother at Disneyland. Emma wearing the silver locket. The locket, Emma was still wearing it. 8 years later, she still had the locket her grandmother had given her. Patricia had never taken it from her. It was the one piece of her real identity she had carried through the lies. Jennifer opened the locket. Inside was the tiny photo, faded but still visible. Emma and her grandmother, both wearing Minnie Mouse ears, both smiling, and Emma remembered. It came flooding back in fragments, pieces of a life stolen from her. Her real mother, her brother, the casino, the fountains, the light-up sandals. The last time she felt safe, they held each other and cried for hours. FBI agents gave them space, let them reunite privately, let them begin the impossible process of healing 8 years of trauma. David flew in from Arizona the next day. Tyler drove up from Sacramento. 8 years sober after finally beating his addiction. The family that had been shattered on June 14, 2011, began the slow, painful process of becoming a family again. Patricia Henley was charged with kidnapping, child abduction, false imprisonment, and multiple counts of fraud. Her trial began in March of 2020. Emma testified against her aunt, telling the jury how Patricia had manipulated her, lied to her, stolen her childhood. Patricia's defense attorneys argued she was mentally ill, suffering from delusional disorder, not responsible for her actions. The jury didn't buy it. On April 7, 2020, Patricia Henley was convicted on all counts. She was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole. She would be 81 years old before she could apply for release. Archie's sentencing. Jennifer Price read a victim impact statement. She talked about 8 years of not knowing if her daughter was alive or dead. 8 years of waking up every morning and wondering if today would be the day they found Emma S.'s body. 8 years of guilt, wondering what she could have done differently. 8 years of watching her marriage fall apart, watching her son struggle with addiction, watching her family disintegrate because of Patricia's betrayal. Her voice broke multiple times. She cried, but she finished. She told the judge that Patricia had destroyed more than just Emma's childhood. She had destroyed an entire family. She deserved every year of her sentence. Patricia Henley showed no emotion. She sat stone-faced, staring straight ahead, as if she still couldn't comprehend what she had done wrong. Psychiatric experts would later testify that she genuinely believed she had saved Emma, that she had given Emma a better life, that she was the victim in all of this. Delusional disorder is a powerful thing. It allows people to commit monstrous acts while believing they're heroes. And me? What happened to me? The day Emma Price was found alive, my phone started ringing. News outlets wanted interviews. They wanted to know how it felt to be vindicated after 8 years of suspicion. They wanted me to talk about the trauma of being wrongly accused, the years of hiding, the destroyed career, the lost relationships. I declined all interviews. I didn't want to make Emma's story about me. This wasn't my tragedy. It was hers. But Detective Rodriguez called me on September 26, 2019. She was crying. She told me she was sorry again, but this time for different reasons. She was sorry that I had been right all along, that she had destroyed an innocent man's life in her desperation to solve a case quickly. She was sorry that her instincts had failed her, that she had focused on the wrong person while the real kidnapper was comforting the family. She was sorry that the system had failed both me and Emma. I told her what I had told her 3 years earlier. I forgave her. But this time, I meant it. Because Emma was alive. Because after 8 years of nightmares, after 8 years of wondering if I could have done something differently, after 8 years of carrying guilt for a crime I didn't commit, I finally had proof that I had done nothing wrong. The maintenance uniform witness had been right. Someone in a uniform had taken Emma. But it wasn't me. It had never been me. On October 17th, 2019, 3 weeks after Emma was found, I received an unexpected visitor at the nonprofit where I worked. Jennifer Price walked through the door. She found me in my office, looked at me with tears in her eyes, and said 5 words that changed everything. I am so sorry. She told me she knew I had been innocent all along. She told me she had defended me to the police, insisted I was just helping her find the bathroom, tried to tell them they were wasting time investigating me instead of looking for Emma. But nobody listened to her. The police thought she was in shock, traumatized, not thinking clearly. They followed their instincts instead of listening to the one person who had actually been there. She told me she had wanted to reach out over the years, to apologize, to tell me she believed me, but her lawyers had advised against it, said it could complicate the investigation, said she needed to focus on finding Emma rather than clearing my name. So she stayed silent, and I suffered. She was sorry. So sorry. I told her I understood. I told her she had done nothing wrong. I told her she had been a mother desperate to find her daughter, and that was all that mattered. I told her I was glad Emma was alive, that I was glad their family was healing, that I was glad the truth had finally come out. We cried together in my office to people whose lives had been destroyed by the same tragedy finally finding closure 8 years later. Jennifer asked if I would be willing to meet Emma. She said Emma wanted to thank me, wanted to meet the person who had been wrongly accused because of her case. I wasn't sure it was a good idea. I didn't want to traumatize Emma further, didn't want to remind her of that terrible night. But Jennifer insisted. She said Emma needed to see that I was a real person, not the monster the media had made me out to be, not the face in the security footage that haunted her nightmares. 2 weeks later, November 1st, 2019, I met Emma Price at a coffee shop in Reno. She was 16 years old, nervous, picking at her fingernails, barely making eye contact. Jennifer sat beside her, supportive but letting Emma take the lead. Emma looked at me for a long moment, studying my face, trying to reconcile the villain from the news coverage with the person sitting across from her. Then she said, "I'm sorry." I told her she had nothing to apologize for. She said, "Because of me, you lost everything." I told her that wasn't true. I told her she was a victim, that I was a victim, that we were both victims of the same crime. I told her Patricia Hindley was the only person responsible for what happened. Emma cried. I cried. Jennifer cried. We were three broken people sitting in a coffee shop trying to make sense of a tragedy that had no sense to it. Emma asked me about that night, what I remembered, what I saw. I told her the truth. Her mother asked me where the bathroom was. I pointed the way. Emma was holding her mother's hand. She was wearing light-up sandals and a white sundress with yellow flowers. I watched them walk away. I turned to help other guests. That was it. That was all I remembered. I never touched her. I never spoke to her. I never hurt her. Emma nodded, as if my words confirmed something she already knew. She said she remembered the light-up sandals. She remembered holding her mother's hand. She remembered feeling safe. And then she remembered her aunt appearing, telling her it was a surprise, telling her to come along. She remembered trusting Patricia because she was family, because adults don't lie to children, because nothing bad could happen with her aunt. She remembered getting in the car, driving away, watching Las Vegas disappear in the rearview mirror, not understanding what was happening until it was too late. Trauma. The destroyed life. But watching her laugh with her friends, watching her live, I realized something. She survived. I survived. We both survived. When she glanced up at camera 7, directly at the lens, it felt like she was looking at me, like she knew I was watching, like she was telling me it was okay. We were okay. The nightmare was over. My name is Marcus Chun. 13 years ago, an 8-year-old girl disappeared from the Bellagio Casino floor, and I became the prime suspect in one of Nevada's most notorious missing children cases. I lost to my job, my reputation, my ability to trust that doing the right thing would protect me. For 13 years, I carried the weight of Emma Price. But Emma Price survived. She was found. She reunited with her family. She healed. She grew up. She's 21 years old now, living her life, refusing to let Patricia Henley's betrayal define her future. She's in college. She's studying psychology. She wants to help other trauma survivors heal. She turned her tragedy into purpose. And I survived too. I rebuilt my life. I found purpose helping others who had been wrongly accused, who had been destroyed by a broken system, who needed someone to tell them they weren't alone. I learned that survival isn't about erasing the past. It's about carrying it forward, letting it change you, but not letting it destroy you. This is the story of Emma Price. A missing girl who was found, a family that was shattered and slowly healed, an aunt who committed an unthinkable betrayal, a detective who learned that instincts can be wrong, and a casino employee who learned that innocence isn't always enough, but survival is always possible. 13 years later, we're all still here, still surviving, still healing, still trying to make sense of a tragedy that will never fully make sense. But we're here, and that has to count for something. This is Missing Innocence. Thank you for watching.